This is why you can't focus, even when you desperately want to. Not because you're lazy, not because you're addicted to your phone, and not because you don't care. It's because your attention is honest, and it's trying to tell you something that you've been too busy to hear. We've all been trained to treat focus as a productivity problem, but it's not. It's a signal clarity problem. And signals don't get louder the more that you chase them. They get clearer the more that you quiet down. Because clarity doesn't compete with noise. It waits underneath it. And the reason you feel disconnected is because you've been solving the wrong problem. You've been trying to force your mind into a version of focus that wasn't designed for the season that you're in. But your attention isn't a machine. It's a mirror. And right now, it's reflecting back a deeper truth that you haven't had time to sit with yet. Let's talk about what's actually happening when you can't focus. There are three internal forces that fragment your attention. I call them the focus breakers. Number one is the cognitive overload. This is the surface layer. Your mind is juggling unfinished loops, open tabs, background noise, constant switching. You're thinking in fragments, not threads, and it creates a mental fog that makes focus feel slippery. But surface noise isn't the real issue, it's just the symptom. And number two is emotional interference. This is the middle layer. This is the tension underneath the task. You sit down to write, but you're emotionally distracted by the conversation that you didn't have, the decision that you're avoiding, the identity that you're protecting. You don't lack discipline. You're just trying to perform while carrying emotional noise that hasn't been processed. And emotional tension always leaks into your attention, even if you pretend it doesn't, because you're doing tasks from a version of you that you've already outgrown. You're working from an outdated identity, a self that no longer matches your deeper truth. And when your outer tasks don't match your inner becoming, your focus will start to resist you. Not because you're lazy, but because your nervous system is loyal to your truth, loyal to your becoming, loyal to the part of you that refuses to pretend that your current tasks still matter. This is what most productivity advice misses. That focus isn't just about what you're doing, it's about who you're doing it as. If the identity behind the task is outdated, your attention will quietly start to rebel, not to sabotage you, but to protect the version of you you haven't fully become yet. Focus is not a discipline problem, it's a self-alignment problem. Let me ask you this: what if your inability to focus is actually wisdom? What if it's your inner intelligence that's rejecting tasks that no longer feel true? We blame ourselves. We think, why can't I just push through? But maybe pushing through is the exact problem. You don't push clarity, you clear space for it. Here's a truth that changed my life. When your identity is shifting, your attention will go on strike, not out of rebellion, but as a form of inner protection. Because continuing to execute from an old self is a kind of self-abandonment, and your nervous system feels it long before your calendar does. Because your body knows when a task is no longer in integrity. It knows when the version of you executing the plan isn't the version that designed it. That's not resistance, that's intelligence. So the next time you find yourself procrastinating, before you shame or self-optimize, ask yourself, am I trying to execute from an identity that I've already outgrown? Because sometimes your inability to focus isn't a flaw in your discipline. It's a sign that you're overdue for a deeper conversation with yourself. Let's go deeper. You can't focus when part of you doesn't feel safe. Not physically, emotionally. And emotional safety isn't about comfort. It's about internal congruence. You're most focused when your task, identity, and inner truth are all in alignment. But when there's a gap between what you're doing, who you think you are, and who you're becoming, your focus will start to fracture. It's not failure, it's friction. That's why the advice of just block distractions doesn't work. Because the biggest distractions are not external, they're internal conversations that you're avoiding. And the longer that you avoid them, the louder that your mind will try to compensate with false urgency, over planning, and endless tweaks that feel like progress, but are actually just avoidance. Focus doesn't start with boundaries. It starts with bravery, the courage to admit that you might be working on the right thing from the wrong version of yourself. That's why focus can't be forced. It has to be aligned. When what you're doing finally matches who you're becoming, everything gets quieter, cleaner, simpler, not easier, but truer. Here's what I invite you to try. Not a productivity hack, but a moment of reflection. Ask yourself these three questions honestly. Is the version of me that's doing this task the version that I still want to be? What emotion is silently competing for my attention right now? What truth am I avoiding by pretending that I need more focus? You don't have to fix everything today, but if you stop lying to yourself about what your focus is trying to tell you, you'll start to hear what's actually beneath the noise. Focus isn't just about what you do, it's about what version of you is doing it. And if those two are not in sync, your mind will drift, no matter how disciplined you are. Because focus without self-honesty is just productivity with no soul. And you weren't built for that. You weren't built to be a machine, executing outputs without any reflection. You were built to notice, to feel the shift when something stops resonating, to tune your calendar to your signal, not your shame. So let these questions guide you, not to fix, but to realign. This isn't about getting back to work. It's about getting back to yourself. So next time that you catch yourself saying, I just can't focus today, try this. Don't force it. Don't shame yourself. Just pause, listen, and ask yourself, is there a signal that I've been ignoring? Is my future self trying to redirect me quietly? You're not lazy. You're not undisciplined. And that honesty is trying to protect something deeper. Maybe it's not about how hard you work. Maybe it's about how much you're still pretending. Because pretending is expensive. It costs energy. It costs presence. And eventually, it costs clarity. Your mind isn't unfocused. It's just tired of building from a version of you that doesn't feel honest anymore. So the next time that your focus disappears, don't panic. Don't optimize. Breathe and ask yourself the only question that really matters. What truth is my attention trying to tell me? Then listen, not for answers, but for resonance. That's when your focus comes back, not as force, but as faith.